Adobe Max 2017, welcome back to the Dell FMC campus. We've got an awesome session here for you coming up with Mr. Jeff Greenberg. He's going to be doing his session and his talk on Windows for Creatives. So come on in, take a seat, and enjoy. Mr. Greenberg, it's all you, sir.
Thank you, Paul. So I want to kind of just give you guys a little bit of a setting here, a little bit of a story, which is basically this. I'm a video and film professional. And here's my problem. There are days where I need to get the job done fast, and I don't care about the hardware as long as I can get the job done faster. It lets me make more mistakes faster. And this is part of this talk here about Windows for creatives. So we're going to do a little bit about you. How do you feel about technology? Now, we're going to just raise hands for this, okay? So how many of you go, you know, I feel good about technology, but I'm a little cautious? That's so many hands there. All right. How many of you go, it's easy, I love this stuff? I'm an early adopter. I own more hardware at home that like never made a Gen 2. I sometimes feel overwhelmed. It's okay. It's all right to be overwhelmed. I do it because I have to. I'm a creative and I use the technology because I'm forced to use the technology to have fun, to do art. Well, which Adobe tools do you use? Where are my Photoshop people? Everybody's hand's supposed to raise for that one. You're all Photoshop users. How many of you are video-centric? Premiere, how about design-centric? InDesign, Illustrator? Well, the reason I ask this is I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a film and television professional. I'm a consultant. I have a lot of books, a lot of training around television, around these tools, around Premiere, around other tools in the Adobe suite. Written a couple books. What happened to me is I was getting ready for a film festival, and I went to produce what was called a DCP, a digital cinema project file. I can do it in Premiere. I was doing it with a different tool. And you know what happens? I was on a box. I'm not going to name the company, but let's say it ran OS 10. And it took, I was getting 3 frames a second. And I just got my hands on a Dell box, and I moved the project over there, 24 frames a second for the output. And as a practical for me, that meant I was doing stuff 10 times faster. And I began to jump down the rabbit hole of how could I use technology to serve me rather than being constrained by that technology? So while you're here, I'm sitting down at this booth right now because rendering takes too long. Who feels rendering takes too long? Could it be 15 to 40% faster? And the answer is yes. Yes, it can. I'm not going to ask a question like that unless I'm sure of it. I'm frustrated with limited hardware choices. How many of you go, I'd like to get a better video card in my computer? Or, I've bought an all-in-one computer, I'd like to change the video card or change how much RAM or space, hard drive space. How many of you feel selling your computer isn't an upgrade path? Right. Okay, the only upgrade is I have to sell it and buy a new one, and then am I going through Craigslist? eBay? Am I selling it to a friend? How about that something goes wrong and you've got to carry it into a store and maybe wait 5 days, which I watched a shop come to a halt. And I turned to them and I said, why don't you just buy a new computer? Because I take a professional out of the game for 5 days. You might as well just buy a new computer for them. I'm totally curious about what you're going to say, Jeff. That's why you guys sat here. I love you for doing it. This seat was empty. Why not? It's okay. It's really all right to take a load off. You're at a show. That's really normal. Basically, I'd like you to know all these things are true by getting yourself off of a creative platform. It's like saying to me that only Bic pens can do great drawings. It doesn't make a difference. It's just a pen. Nobody is saying versus. I'm not saying you should throw out all your equipment. I'm saying your next equipment purchases should be systems that let you work smarter and faster. What if I could be working faster? What if I could upgrade my system? What if I could get support? Now this one's crazy. This is crazy. I've dealt with this. What if I could get support here in this hotel because I had a problem 2 days ago and a repair technician showed up in my hotel room to fix my laptop? How crazy is that? That's what switching could do for you. You see, the reason we tend not to switch to inertia is about fear. And fear is a fine thing to have. I'm frightened right now. I'm frightened every day of my life. I'm an anxious little ball of angst most of the time. Up to now, your life has been full of change, though. One of the ways that I got over when I get frightened about stuff is I realized, you know what? 18 months ago, I had my second kid, and it was the scariest thing all over again. Life is about change. And there's no reason. You did just fine on whatever that major change was last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. There's no reason why switching platforms would be anything other than something you could easily overcome as a hurdle. You see, this is the biggest problem I have with switching platforms is basically this: decision overload. You go and you try and figure out what to buy, and you see, hey, I'm going to buy a system. This is what the list of different PC manufacturers are. Yeah, that's too big of a list. And that's not even configuring the system. That's just people who sell systems. So, the other line that I get from people is I'm worried about viruses. I'd like you to know built into Windows is a top-notch. I have systems that are on the internet 24/7. I've had clients bring in stuff with viruses. It cleans itself up all by itself. I don't have to be an expert with this. What if I don't know how to troubleshoot? I want to let you know that 90% of troubleshooting nowadays is Google, but beyond that, there's good support staff. This is the only real legitimate thing you could ever say, oh, I don't like the industrial design of one of these systems. For example, I want you to see that this box here has an infinite edge display. Can I get that to light up? Look how close that is to the edges. Look how close. It's a 15-inch laptop in 14 inches of space because of how thin that bezel is. That's really good industrial design. My desktop box, my workstation, I don't care about the industrial design. It's sitting underneath my desk anyway. So this idea that the computer should be pretty, maybe when it's my laptop, maybe less so when it's a workstation. I think that this is an emotional decision, and I respect it. I want to simplify the picture. If you're going to switch, and you'll notice I still haven't said this name yet. I will say this before we're done. I'm going to simplify the picture. What do I need to know about configuring a system? I'm taking more of a video-centric approach. You need to have a good CPU. And for me right now, it's nothing against the AMD people. I'm a big Intel fan because Intel was the only way I'm going to get Thunderbolt on a system. So we're talking i5s and i7s and Xeons. I want you to know that the GPU is important. The GPU is life and death in video. It's actually life and death in Photoshop. Turns out if your video card is less than 2 gigabytes of video, if you have no dedicated video card for Photoshop, you lose out on some of what Photoshop can do. For me, these displaying pixels is crucial. Here you go, look at this. Features that require a GPU. If your graphics processor is unsupported, you won't get 3D, oil paint, scrubby zoom, bird's eye view, flick panning. All these things are missing from Photoshop. 2 gigabytes of video RAM is what's recommended. For Premiere, there's a little switch here, and everything that is under that switch is what you're going to get GPU acceleration with. Minimal video cards are deadly to professional workflows. Deadly. How bad? In the Premiere situation, it can add a factor of 3 to 5 times for key effects for the render time. It's that bad. Because I'm going to color correct everything, and color correction is one of those things that's based on the GPU. RAM is an important component. It's all about thinking space for the computer. For me, it's about 2 to 4 gigs per core. So if I'm buying an i7 and it's got, say, 8 cores to it, I'd like you to be at least 16 gigs of RAM. Again, some companies limit their laptops to how much RAM. I get why they do it. They do it because they're trying to give you the best power model. But I don't sometimes care about power. I want to put the computer down and get the best performance. You can get 32. Can you get 64 in these or just 32? Yeah, so you can get 32 gigs of RAM on these 15-inch laptops. If you're an After Effects user, RAM is your lifeblood. It is your lifeblood. Last one I want you to know about is just faster is better. I'd like you to have an SSD in your system, whether it's in the newer, the M2 NVRAM. I just want you to have a fast boot drive, and it makes a huge difference. Now, there's one thing about storage that you got to know about, that is, without Thunderbolt, you want to buy the system with Thunderbolt. You can't add it as the card. You can't get it under AMD because it talks directly to the CPU. And there are things coming out nowadays. For example, there are breakout external GPUs that you can put in a box, plug in over Thunderbolt 3, and you can get an external GPU to even take a system and make it even faster along those lines. Now, a lot of us are scared. A lot of us have some fear when we switch systems. But what Windows 10 isn't what I'm used to. Check this out. When I tell you it's the same, when I tell you it's got your, your applications folder and your system folder and user, I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to see this. You see your system folder is your Windows folder. Your applications folder is your programs folder. Your users folder is your users folder. Your desktop folder is your desktop folder. Whoops. There we go. Your downloads is your downloads. Your movies is your videos now. Your music is your music. Your pictures is your pictures. Are you getting the idea that you could jump onto any Windows box and kind of find your way navigationally? Let's take that up. Let's add a little bit more to that. Sole exception is the library. I have this here as an idea. You should know that this whole reason I'm speaking here is for a free webinar on Windows for Creatives. It's a little bit longer than this 20 minutes I'm doing. And I'm going to dig into the deep details across it. But I'd like you to know this idea of the library. If you know what a library is on a Macintosh, it's called App Data Roaming on the PC. And now I'm going to teach you about how I teach. The secret key you want to know about is the Windows key. You sometimes will hit a key and you go, what does it do? Watch this. Windows Explorer. I'm going to hold down the Windows key. I'm going to tap the E key. Look what happens. I just brought up a Windows Explorer. I'm going to hit Windows and the letter D, and I just got to the Windows desktop. I'm going to hit Alt-Tab to come back, which is really similar to, again, what you're used to. There's the Windows Explorer. There's the Windows desktop. Look at this. This is going to hurt. I'm going to put down the mic for it. Windows, left, right, up, down. Windows left. Windows right. Windows up. Windows down. I can sit back and move windows around, making it easy for me to get part of two different applications open at the same time, perfectly dividing that space. There's all this stuff, by the way, all this stuff is part of this Microsoft document. And I'm happy to give you this document. Again, this is going to be part of this free webinar we're going to be doing in November, a little bit longer than that. Did I say free enough times? How many of you guys have muscle memory? Right. This free tool called Sharp Keys, or this Microsoft Microsoft Layout Creator, will let you switch Command and Control, so when you hit undo, you're hitting the right set of keys, even if your brain is putting your fingers in the wrong place. You got a lot of Mac drives? This is a requirement. I don't care what my drives are formatted anymore. I want you to know I'm not saying Mac versus PC. I'm saying to you, I grab a drive and I plug it in, and it doesn't matter because all my systems read and write both formats because I have utilities on them. So I don't have to waste time reformatting equipment. I don't have to waste time worrying that my $3,000 8-disk drive RAID will have any problems when it plugs into my PC. Anybody in here use ProRes? Anybody does video editing? ProRes? I'd like you to know that every NLE reads it on PC. We have DNX and Cineform, and there's some nice utilities out there that will write ProRes on the PC. This is a Dell workshop, and I'd like to tell you what makes Dell an easier brand to jump into for a Windows jump. First, you can get calibrated color monitors, and this is great for print, this is great for video, great for web. They can use an X-Rite calibrator with this. This can have things like Rec 709, Adobe RGB, P3 Cinema. This is what I need as a professional, is being able to know what I'm looking at is what I'm looking at. I'd like you to know there's a Dell Precision Optimizer. You know how in whatever tool you use, whatever platform, there's a whole bunch of little switches to get just a little bit more oomph out of it? That's what this has done. This Precision Optimizer, this is my machine. I said, hey, turn on After Effects, Media Encoder, Photoshop, and Premiere, and it gives me a little bit extra push on what the computer does. Three suggested platforms. I have no idea why that's there. 3 suggested platforms. There's a desktop. I think it's the 5820, an all-in-one 5720. What if you could get a 17-inch laptop again? What if you get a 17-inch laptop that's a workstation with 32 gigs of RAM that you can place down? It's not a laptop if you put it on a desk, you know, because you need a performance box out there. In fact, a box like that is how you're going to do mobile VR work, because you need those sort of video cards that you're not going to get, say, in most consumer laptops. I mentioned here some tools I love, like Ninite, where you can pull down all your items in one pull. I've got here Evernote. I taught my boy Mike here. Where's the other Mike? There he is. Look, right here, Mike, LastPass. Okay, right there. We talked about this last night. These are tools I love. I want to give you the idea. This is kind of what that workshop is going to be like online for free, 90 minutes worth. This is a free class from fmctraining.com. You can talk to the people in the booth. They can capture your information, get you part of the webinar. It's happening in November. My name's Jeff Greenberg. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much. I'm totally available. If any of you have specific questions, feel free. I've done this. If I can do this, you can do this.